Welcome to the Awakened Anesthetist podcast, the first podcast to highlight the CAA experience. I'm your host, Mary Jean, and I've been a certified anesthesiologist assistant for close to 2 decades. Throughout my journey and struggles, I've searched for guidance that includes my unique perspective as a CAA. At one of my lowest points, I decided to turn my passion for storytelling and my belief that the CAA profession is uniquely able to create a life by design into a podcast. If you are a practicing CAA, current AA student, or someone who hopes to be one, I encourage you to stick around and experience the power of being in a community filled with voices who sound like yours, sharing experiences you never believed possible. I know you will find yourself here at the Awakened Anesthetist podcast. Welcome in. Hello, Awakened Anesthetist community. Welcome to season 5 of Awakened Anesthetist podcast. I'm so happy you're here. Whether you are a prospective CAA, a certified anesthesiologist assistant who's working, or a student, or perhaps a retired CAA, this podcast was made for you. This is the first podcast created for our CAA community, and I'm really excited to be sharing the 5th season. And I thought I would use this first episode to reintroduce myself. The podcast community has changed quite a bit since the podcast started in 2021. And if you are wanting to know who the hell I am and why I'm on this microphone, I thought it might be good to kind of wind it all the way back to the beginning and then give you an update since I had last shared one of these life updates truly in 2023. I figured it was probably time to tell you everything that's happened since then and kind of where I am now because yes, so much has changed and also a lot is still the same. So I wanted to get into that, but first I wanted to make mention that there is a new Awakened Anesthetist website. It's awakenedanesthetist.com. I worked really hard on this 3 times. Actually, the first 2 times failed. I had first one I tried to do completely by myself, and that just started but never really went anywhere. The second time I had a web designer help me, and they kind of abandoned the project halfway, and that was like 2 years ago, and I just sort of abandoned it myself. And then this third time I partnered with Visible, which was a company I found through Squarespace, which is my website host, and I loved them. I loved the work they did. And I'm really, really proud to share the final result, the final website at awakenedanesthetist.com. You can go there to find all my offerings, all the podcast back episodes. You can also connect with me. You can book a free AMA, a free Ask Me Anything for 10 minutes, or a longer consultation if you wanted to do some more like one-on-one coaching or question asking about your particular maybe pre-AA situation, or maybe you're a career transitioner like I am. And there's also a section for my trusted CAA partners. So these are other CAA creators who have businesses or online presences that I find really valuable myself, and I wanted to share with our community, as well as you'll see the season 5 podcast sponsor, Harmony Locums Staffing. Harmony is a company that is founded and owned by CAAs. They have made it possible to bring all the process episodes to you all this season. Also, they are making it possible for my family to have health insurance because, as you'll hear in this episode, I left my employed position that was giving me health insurance. So thank you, Harmony Anesthesia, from many levels. But I'm just really excited to have just this one place, awakenedanesthetist.com, that I can send everyone to find all things Awakened Anesthetist, CAA Matters, the podcast. Of course, I'm still on social media. I've actually sort of got more into posting on Instagram. So that's a great place for behind the scenes, for some motivational content, for more CAA wellness related content as well. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn. So I look forward to connecting with you all. Okay, so when I was planning this very first episode, I hadn't really remembered where I left you all off. So if you are a longtime listener, you know that I have episodes called process episodes. This is really the heart of Awakened Anesthetist podcast. These are the conversations with other CAAs. So I'm in conversation with other CAAs, and they are serving as sort of expanders as to what's possible as a CAA. The main reason really I started this podcast was because I was at a point of my career where I wanted to work part-time, and there was no one in my immediate CAA community who was working part-time that I knew well or felt related to in a way that it was like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. And so I had to go outside the CAA community to have that inspiration, to find the blueprint, to figure out what steps to take. And, luckily there were CRNAs and anesthesiologists and PAs that were kind of close enough to me that I kind of got sort of found my way, but really I just stumbled into it. And I realized through that process that, or maybe I planted a seed in my mind, because I certainly did not start the podcast right away in 2018 when I was going through that career transition, but I think it planted the seed that this community deserves media and content and voices from inside the community, sharing what it's like, what's possible, where you can go as a CAA. And so I filed that away. And so I think where I want to start this story, if you're totally new, is to tell you that there are 3 process episodes laying out my journey into becoming a CAA. So like all the way from, I guess, probably high school, undergrad, that whole mindset, and how I found out about being a CAA and how I decided to become a CAA and which school I decided to go to, on through working my first full-time job. I was there for 11 years. I was blissfully happy, basically until I wasn't. And then in 2019, I made a big career transition to work part-time. And then in 2021, I was fired from that dream part-time job, which I outline in the 3rd process episode. And basically by the end of that 3rd process episode, I share with you that I had a new job. I was working at the same surgery center. I was now working 2 days instead of 3 days, and I was working for a larger corporation, like a larger hospital. I had previously been employed by a private anesthesia group, and that's where I left the story off. So I really suggest, as opposed to me saying that all again, that you go back and listen. I give a lot of details. I talk about the money, like the actual dollars and financial transparency that I think is important when you're talking about a big career shift or talking about leaving a job or going to a different job or any of that type of conversation. I just think so many people don't talk about the money because it's a little bit awkward, but I just leaned in and laid it all out there. So I suggest you go back and listen. But a brief high-level overview is that in 2017, I had my 3rd child. I have, right now, I have an 11-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 7-year-old. But in 2017, that 7-year-old was just born. I realized my full-time job and that schedule was not sustainable for the life that was really going to be something I wanted to continue forever. I realized that something needed to change. I wanted more time to be with my kids, with myself. I wanted to move more slowly. I wanted to regain some parts of me that I felt had gotten lost when everything became about going to work and working as a CAA and then really nothing else. And so I started this big sort of self-discovery process that led me so many ways and places. But one of them is that I ended up starting a podcast in 2020, really in the thick of the pandemic. My husband and I were thrown together at home for the first time a lot. And we were not in a great place, and we were looking for ways to heal the fractures between us, as well as become more connected in this environment, the pandemic environment, as well as having 3 small kids at home all day, every day environment that was really pulling us apart. And so I got this intuition, this hit to start a podcast, and I asked my husband if he wanted to start one. He said absolutely. Well, he didn't really say absolutely. He said like, sure, that's fine. And so I kind of got everything going. We recorded our first podcast called Growth Minded Marriage. We recorded it in our basement, like under a blanket. I had a horrible cold. That's not the episode that is the first, if you can go and want to search for it. Because it was so bad, I could not, like truly it could not be shown. But that was the start of it. And I just fell in love with podcasting. I have always been a storyteller. I've always loved hearing stories, talking to people, asking questions. That's always been who I am. And podcasting became a way at that point for me to learn more about myself. Definitely, I was someone who, now I would describe it, would say they're like numb from the nose down. Like I just didn't know myself very well. And I was all in my head. It was all about, like that type A perfectionism, achievement brain, sort of science minded, everything that sort of worked well for me as a CAA. And I really went on a very soulful spiritual journey of discovering myself, reconnecting with my husband, reconnecting with who I am. And when my husband and I decided that our podcast was coming to a natural end, I did not want to stop podcasting, and I decided to continue podcasting, but to create a podcast for my beloved CAA community. I have always loved being a CAA. I still love being a CAA. I still work clinically. I still give anesthesia. It brings me joy. It honestly is a profession that makes me feel more like me when I do it. I just didn't want to do it every single day. I wanted to do the other things that make me feel like me. And so I started podcasting specifically for this profession. I called it Awaken Anesthis Podcast and sort of started that all in 2021. In the background of all of that, I was transitioning from full-time career to part-time career in 2019. I was working 3 days a week at a surgery center. As I briefly mentioned, I was then fired. So the private anesthesia group that employed me pulled out of that contract at the surgery center and went back basically to their main regional hospital and left all of the anesthesia personnel, which was myself and 2 other CAAs, at the surgery center without a job when our contract ended in 90 days. And what ended up happening is that the large hospital in that town, that's sort of like an hour away from Kansas City, decided to buy up the surgery center contract, the anesthesia contract, and that anesthesia department absorbed the 3 CAAs. They ended up hiring another CRNA, so there made 4 of us, and then they floated their anesthesiologist to the surgery center. When I took that job, I negotiated a new contract where I was working 2 days a week, really about 8-hour shifts, 2 8-hour shifts a week. And I negotiated that I would be on their group healthcare plans. So I paid, of course, a premium, but I was allowed as a 20-ish hour a week worker to, well, that's not 20. I guess 16-hour a week worker to be on their healthcare plan. And I was blissfully happy. I signed a sign-on bonus. They gave me a $12,500 sign-on bonus for 3 years. And when I signed, I thought life could possibly not get better than this. I can't believe that I found this 2-day-a-week job with health insurance. It was everything I thought I couldn't have when I sat down in like 2018 and first had the dream of one day maybe working part-time and being able to explore the other parts of me and be home more and sort of juggle all the parts of me more seamlessly. And I was so happy, so fulfilled. And that's really where the last process episode, that I'll link all of this in the show notes, that's where it leaves you off. And basically, once I was about 2 years into that 3-year contract with the new anesthesia group at my old surgery center, I was really deeply into teaching wellness at UMKC MSA program. I have been or had been an adjunct professor at UMKC MSA program, their AA program here in Kansas City, since it opened in 2008. That was the reason I moved from Cleveland, Ohio to Missouri because Missouri had just opened to CAAs. They just opened this master's program and they needed CAAs to come move to Missouri to teach clinically, to work as CAAs, and then, to help be part of the school. So I was one of the CAAs who said yes to that opportunity, and it was one of the best decisions of my life. I was very, very happy. I did many things, teaching the IV rotation, teaching sim labs, and then kind of transitioned when I went part-time into this wellness area of their curriculum. And once I got into the wellness curriculum, I realized how lacking it still is for AA programs for the larger CAA community. I saw the stark difference between the resources that anesthesiologists have and CRNAs have and PAs have and nurses have and basically every other profession besides CAAs, down to the fact that, the Quad A website for us doesn't even have a wellness resource tab. We don't have a wellness task force. We just are still in that very infantile phase of this level of support for our profession. And there's, I think, reasons for that. And that's a whole nother podcast, but certainly something that I tuned into. And the main emotion I felt was pissed. I was just really hurt and upset and angry that no one had thought of us, that no one was taking care of us, that there was not some larger entity. It was kind of like the COVID thing that happened where we all realized collectively, like, who's running this ship? Oh, no one? Like, no one's really watching out for us. That means we have to watch out for ourselves. It was that same epiphany, but in this CAA wellness avenue. And I just dove headfirst in to teaching this curriculum at UMKC. I expanded it. I also was starting to put the pieces together of just the culture of anesthesia and being a CAA that I had heard whispers of and seen around me, but because I wasn't seeing the whole picture from an outsider perspective, I just thought, oh yeah, that person, was struggling with substance abuse or like had taken drugs from the hospital. But like, that's like a one-off thing. Or, yeah, okay, one of our students did overdose in the bathroom, but like, oh, well, they had this or that going on too. And, yes, we had a student who lost their life to propofol, whether it was a suicide or an accidental death. But, that was an isolated circumstance. And then once I kind of got in, I was like, oh, these are all related. These are all because no one's talking about this and there's nowhere to go for help and no resources. And our other anesthesia counterparts, anesthesiologists and CRNAs, all have these same problems. Like, this is systemic within the world of anesthesia as well as in healthcare in general. Of course, then COVID brought to light all the burnout statistics and all of the frontline workers are walking on a razor thin edge between, being able to work and totally incapacitated in bed. And so I just couldn't turn away from it. And then in 2022, I had one of my closest mentors suffer from a substance use disorder and go into treatment. And this person was a CAA, and just it deeply, deeply affected me in a way where I just said, absolutely no more. I refuse to tolerate this ever at all. Like, I am now shifting my focus to create wellness resources to move the needle forward. I didn't know what that exactly meant. There were so many things I could do. And that was, 2022, 2023, figuring out what I can uniquely do, which meant trying a whole bunch of things. Got a mindfulness meditation teacher training. I took a mindfulness-based stress reduction 8-week course. I got a certification in mindful practice in medicine. I took a whole bunch of online courses and classes, did my own research because I was creating this curriculum for UMKC AA programs. I started networking in this community, and I just didn't let go of this. Like, I wasn't sure where I was going, but I kept stepping forward because I was so motivated by this, I think, being pissed and being angry and being hurt. And, I think that can be a really great motivator. Also, it's not sustainable. Like, I can't stay angry. I can't stay pissed. And I would say that's not really the motivation I have now, but it is what fueled me for the first couple of years for sure, because I was juggling, all my other responsibilities and then trying to start this wellness initiative in the CAA profession as well. And then I realized as my 3-year contract was coming up that I was not going to be able to stay working at the surgery center job, even at 2 days a week, and pour my time and energy into creating CAA wellness initiatives and live at the pace of life that I have had at that point realized was where I really wanted to live, which is a much slower pace of life. I don't want to be booked 100% of the time. I want to live in a way where I can wake up in the morning, sort of feel out what my energy is, choose how my energy aligns with whatever projects I have going on that I can pick from. There's no one breathing down my neck. There's no one saying you have to be at work at 5 a.m. today because we're doing a cardiac case. I can, get more sleep and I just wanted a life that I could control in a way that is hard to control if I was going to the operating room. And so I took some time to realize that I would be leaving my dream part-time 2-day-a-week job with health insurance. And I had to really figure out what that would look like, because let's talk about money. I don't want to tell you this whole story and not tell you the reality of I needed money to survive. I, at that point, was still the primary breadwinner. My husband is an amazing antiques dealer. He has been since he's 11. He works part-time as well now, and at that point was kind of reprioritizing his time as well to try to see how much he could get done in how little time, in terms for how much money he could make, or if he could make his needed salary in less time if he reworked his working habits. Anyways, yes, he works part-time as well. I'm not married to someone who is a gazillionaire and doing all this, but I realized that I needed more control and more freedom. And I also realized I did not want to not give anesthesia. And what did that mean? How did I now take the next step? And of course I thought, oh, well, I'll work locums. But what had happened is that when I moved from that 3-day-a-week position with a private group to the 2-day-a-week position with a larger organization, I decided to have another backup plan. And I took a PRN position at the large academic hospital in Kansas City. They need people fairly regularly just because they're such a large institution. And I had already at one point thought I might work there PRN. So I basically just revisited that in my mind, said yes to it, applied, and was able to start working PRN about a once a month-ish rate while I was working my 2-day-a-week job. And I did that for about a year. And during that time, they always needed me. They never called me off. I had such a wonderful experience working PRN there that I thought, maybe I can bet on them and on me that if I were to just work there PRN and maybe work 1 day a week, I could, bank on them always needing me PRN, which is a risk, and I could make enough money, because the PRN rates have gone up and up and up since COVID. I'm now getting $200 an hour PRN for this hospital. And maybe I could make enough money that I could afford to buy my health insurance off the marketplace, which is what we're doing. I currently pay almost $1,700 a month for family health insurance for myself, my husband, my 3 kids. And I kind of ran all the numbers, figured this all out, and said, okay, I am going to quit my dream part-time 2-day-a-week job. I am going to work 1 day a week at this large academic facility, PRN, and I am going to use the next year, 2 years to pour into the CAA Wellness Initiative, to pour into where I can uniquely make impact, pour into the podcast, and figure out if there is a way that I can do both, that I can make some money from teaching and the podcast and make money from, of course, working as a CAA, and have those two things meet in the middle so that I can live my dream life, which is doing lots of things from many different buckets, having impact, telling stories, working anesthesia, giving anesthesia, making enough money to support the lifestyle we want, which is another thing that I've done, is figure out exactly what type of lifestyle we need to be happy. And I'm talking like, how many times do we want to go out to dinner? What types of vacations do we want to take? Do we want to take European vacations, or do we want to take camping trips in Missouri? Very, very specific. And I decided to take the risk. I turned in my notice. I stayed all the way up to 3 years because I did not have the ability to give back the $12,500. I had used that money already, and I wasn't unhappy, so I just kind of made that my end date. And so I ended up quitting August of 2024 and immediately went into working 1 day a week PRN. I actually worked 2 days a week for some of that because I was nervous that I wouldn't have enough money, or they wouldn't need me, or I needed a larger sort of FU fund. And that's what I've been doing since August of 2024. It is now August of 2025, and I am still working now really 1 day a week at that PRN academic hospital. You are listening to season 5 of the Wakenesses podcast, so I'm still doing that. I have moved forward on CAA Matters, which was born from the UMKC MSA wellness initiatives that I had made and started, the curriculum development that I had started with the support of UMKC. And with their blessing in 2023, I actually quit my adjunct professor appointment to take that time and energy that I was giving to UMKC's 15 students to see if I could develop a larger, broader program that any AA program could implement. And that has become CAA Matters, which is the first comprehensive wellness and professionalism curriculum for SAAs, for the CAA community, that I've currently been piloting this summer of 2025, with several NSU schools. And in 2 weeks, I'm actually about to leave for VCOM Carolina, which is one of the newest AA programs that has decided to implement the pilot program. And so things are moving along. The other interesting thing that's happened is that I now have support. I have a team of 3 CAA Matters interns, Adri, Tiffany, and Victoria. Shout out to you. They are all pre-AAs themselves who answered my call on Instagram when I said, hey, I'm looking to hire 3 interns. This is what I need you for. And I had over 100 applications from the pre-AA community. I selected these 3 women, and it's been the best decision ever. Of course, they very quickly proved to me that they were so much more valuable than I could have ever imagined. They've really elevated CAA Matters, as well as helped me create the pre-AA Matters version of this wellness curriculum that we are currently teaching to 2 cohorts of pre-AAs right now. We're in the middle of it. And I just am so deeply fulfilled and appreciative of these women that I wanted to give them a little shout out here. And the season 5 of Awaken Anestis podcast is again just going to be a celebration of our CAA community. It is going to be a sharing of stories of amazing CAAs who are expanders for me, for you. In the process episodes, we have the premiere process episode coming soon. I'm so excited to share the process CAAs this season. I've also created a new Wellness Wednesday sort of mini series where I'm going to be funneling all of my wellness teachings. These are going to be things like micro practices and nervous system regulation, and then some bigger concept ideas that I've found along my own journey that I've taken from and kind of helped shape my best life with more information. So these are things like manifestation work and the Enneagram and human design. And we'll see how far we get, because I do know that I want to take things slowly with this community. I could not dive into a lot of this sort of maybe higher level self-care, wellness, inner work right away. I needed to start with some more really grounding practices. And even the word grounding, I don't know that I completely understood when I first started, but I really needed to learn more about myself. And so I am going to progress these wellness episodes in the way that I learned about my own journey into wellness, which was really a reclaiming of who I am kind of an inner journey of healing old wounds and figuring out what I really wanted, figuring out where I was saying yes to other people and saying no to myself and switching that around, and just figuring out what life I truly wanted to live and putting my time and energy into doing what I needed to do in order to live that life. And I will also say that that life has changed. Like that life isn't the same, which is why I wanted to do this update, because again, in 2018, I thought absolutely my best lived life is working 3 days a week. And I couldn't imagine ever finding a job that would pay me enough that I could work 3 days a week. And then as soon as I had that and loved it, the dream changed. And I thought, okay, well, if I can have this, maybe I can have this other 2-day-a-week job with insurance. And I could have never imagined making enough money to, sustain my family and pay $1,700 a month on the marketplace for health insurance. And lo and behold, now I'm making as little money as I've ever made. I've never made as little money as I make now. Even when I first started at 24, I made more money then. But I am working on projects and initiatives that fill me up so fully and completely that I don't need to spend money on sort of some of the things that just like filled up my cup quickly, or like were those fast hits, because I move about my days in such a content, satisfied way, and I always have something to look forward to, that, my family can survive on the type of lifestyle that working 1 day a week as a CAA can provide. And so I'm really excited to allow you into a little bit more of my real self this season. When the first CAA Wellness Wednesday episode comes out on Wednesdays, you will see that you're going to see a different version of me. You're going to see a little bit more into my real self. It's part of how I want to show up this season on Awaken Anesthetist podcast. It is also the type of wellness that I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about perfect wellness. I want to talk about wellness that takes time and is small habit changes and is, because one person talked to another person, you had a good conversation and you pulled this thing that you maybe want to try. And if she can do it, maybe I can do it. That's the type of wellness that moved the needle for me. And so that's what I want to bring to this community. Have I said I'm happy you're here? I'm so happy to be restarting Awaken Anesthetist podcast. I just love, love, love being on mic, connecting with you. It feels like I'm talking to, my community, my friends. I can imagine who's on the other side of this mic. It feels super comfortable. So I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity. If you love this episode, I would be honored if you would share it with another CAA, SAA, or pre-AA in your life. That's how the community grows. You can also go to Awakened Anesthetist podcast to get on my mailing list, to get on the Mindful Connections mailing list, which is starting up again in September. And all things Awakened Anesthetist can be found there or on Instagram at Awakened Anesthetist. All right. Thanks for being here. Let's talk soon, y'all. Thanks for listening to Awakened Anesthetist. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a CAA friend, an AA student in your life, or a prospective, and let them know why you loved it. It's the most important thing you can do to support this podcast and its mission. You can always find more ways to connect with me and this CAA community at awakenedanesthetist.com, including an invitation to join Season 5 Mindful Connections. These are free virtual gatherings open to anyone in our Awakened Anesthetist community. And while you're scrolling the website, check out my trusted CAA partners who make this podcast possible, with a special thank you to my Season 5 sponsor, Harmony Anesthesia Staffing. Talk soon.